Welcome everyone. This is Nilesh here from DQS India. So DQS Global Top 10 Certification Body. We are into auditing, certification, assessment, and training organization. So today we speak about ISO 2040, which is sustainable procurement. So ISO 2040 sustainable procurement, and it talks about integrating your sustainable policies in your purchasing decisions. So it is intended for stakeholders involved in or impacted by procurement decision and process, so which are directly and indirectly impacted on your organization procurement practices. So who are the different stakeholders, so which we talk about in the next slide. So normally all procurement practices will be based upon L1 criteria. Basically just take an example of India level, all government procurement practices, sometimes they will take technical criteria. Technical criteria, there will be evaluation of purchasing decisions, like suppose they want to purchase any product or they want to procure. In that case, there will be technical specification, and second criteria will be L1 based criteria. So based upon the pricing, decisions has been taken, and based upon that, contract will be rewarded. So normally the assumption is bad procurement which is the higher cost, and because of implementing sustainability in procurement practices, maybe which leads to the higher cost. To avoid that, so government came with a mechanism. So it's already implemented in more than 10 countries, like USA, Japan, UK, Germany, Sweden, China, Brazil, and India also. They are planning to implement sustainable procurement criteria in their part of their supply chain. So this is one of the regulation. Maybe it will come. It's under draft stage. It will take some time. So this is the integration of supply chain, ISO 26000, and sustainable procurement. So if you want to implement ISO 2040 in your organization or procurement practices, so everything should be aligned. So all supply chain means your suppliers, contractors, or vendors need to evaluation will be based upon sustainable procurement policy. It's combination of environmental, social, and governance. So decisions can be taken based upon type of suppliers. Your supply chain, your vendors will be evaluated based upon ESG criteria, and for each supplier, the evaluation criteria can be different. Suppose it is for software or for hardware related or for manufacturing, so the criteria can be different. So before developing a policy, you need the detailed understanding of what ISO 26000 talks about and why there is a need of implementing 26000 in your organizational decision making. So this is just a background. So ISO 26000, if you implement, first you need to basically implement 26000. Then once you implement 26000 in your organization, then they can align all your sustainable strategies in your purchasing policies. And third stage is your evaluation of supplier, contractors, or vendors based upon different criteria. So for each vendor, the criteria can be different, or it is combined criteria that will be designed by that organization. And the last is your disclosures. So disclosures can be happen your supplier evaluation or supplier rating, or if you want to just disclose that you are implementing sustainable procurement policies, the disclosures can be done with the help of GRI, CSR, ESG, IR reporting. These are different reporting framework. Also, as part of CDP supply chain, that also you can disclose. So this is the overview of the standard. So first, it talks about concept, principal drivers, and core subjects while developing sustainable procurement practice. First is concept, then you need to align all the principles, then all core subjects with respect to ISO 26000 and drivers for SPs. Then to define the drivers for organization, why you want to go for sustainable procurement. Just take an example of risk or anti-bribery or climate change. These are the few drivers. Because of these drivers, you went for the sustainable procurement policies. So that drivers you need to define. Then integrating your sustainability strategies into organizational procurement policies and strategies. So first is commitment to SP, then clarifying accountability, then aligning procurement with organizational objective and goals. So suppose you have taken certain targets organization level by suppose by 2030 you declare that you'll be carbon neutral, or just take an example of zero waste by 2025, zero waste landfill. So when this target has been taken at the organization level, these targets need to be aligned with your procurement policies. So that's why once these targets are aligned, then your procurement policy will be designed, and same targets can be given to your suppliers also. Because in carbon neutrality, when it talks about carbon neutrality, here you need to disclose your boundary. Is scope 1, scope 2, or scope 3 is there. In that case, you need to align your contractor or vendors also, or your supply chain. So here, one of the criteria can be all your suppliers or vendors need to disclose their carbon footprint, and also you can give certain target that within a span of 2 years, vendors need to reduce their carbon footprint by 10%, 5%. These are the certain targets can be given to your supply chain. Same with respect to waste or any other targets that has been taken at the organization level. Same targets can be given to the supply chain. Organizing the procurement functions towards sustainability. This is the third point. Here it talks about governing the procurement and enabling people, means training people. Then identify and engaging stakeholders. Who are the different stakeholders? Who are the decision makers in your procurement practices? Like suppose there is the evaluation of one of the tender. In that case, there are different. Suppose it's related to the environment, then there are different structure in organization, like that tender can be evaluated by environment department, then procurement department, and top management. So the other three different criteria in our organization. So all these key stakeholders into that department, they should know about the standard. And then setting SP priorities, system program priorities. So when you design the purchasing policy, at that time you need to prioritize each issues and aspects, and that can be aligned with the purchasing policies. And the last is integrating sustainability into the procurement process. So building on the existing process, planning, integrating sustainability requirement into specification, selection of suppliers, managing the contract, and reviewing. So all decisions after the issuing of the work order or contracts, that how to align and how to check. These are the things described in the clause number 7. So this is the standard overview. So right now we can take a decision. So where are you right now? Maybe you are a company or a student or anyone. So if company is in the beginner level, what you need to do? If you are in intermediate level, what you need to do? And the advanced level. So when you want to integrate core subject of ISO 26000 in your organization to develop sustainable strategies. So in ISO 26000 there are 7 core subjects and 37 specific issues. So these are the things you need to implement in your organization before going for procurement development or procurement policies. Once we integrate these 7 core issues in your organization, these 7 core issues can be aligned with your procurement practices. And also here you can design, like take an example of GRI. There are material issues. So based upon the materiality, you are selecting the GRI indicators. Same thing in ISO 26000 also. Here also, out of 8 issues, you can select few issues, and that can be implemented in your procurement, that can be in organization practices. So for community involvement, there are 7 issues: human right 8, labor practices 5, environment 4, fair operative practices 5, and consumer issues 7. So there are total 37 specific issues, and under each issue there are different issues. So total 258 indicators are there as part of ISO 26000. So before developing selecting the core issues, first you need to develop your materiality matrix. So to develop materiality matrix, you need a stakeholder consultation. We'll come to this conclusion after the stakeholder consultations and detailed survey from your stakeholders. That stakeholders can be internal and external stakeholders. Who are the stakeholders? First you will be business development specifiers, then local community, group of NGOs, trade associations, clients, local authorities. These are the different stakeholders for your organization. So based upon stakeholder consultation and interviews, you can come to the conclusion for your materiality design. The materiality developed for organization and for procurement both should be aligned, and based upon that you can take a certain targets for your purchasing policy when you develop the policies. So once the stakeholder consultation done, so this is the way your materiality looks like. So first is climate protection, protection of the environment, innovation, business ethics. This is materiality is for your one of the chemical industry. So that materiality can be, material aspects can be different depending upon industry to industry or sector to sector. So for chemical industry, few aspects can be similar to any other chemical industry. This materiality matrix I taken from the Bayes. So once your stakeholder consultation done and materiality aspects has been done from materiality, suppose you have taken there are 20 different issues based upon the material analysis done by your organization, and you need to take only high issues for the first year based upon the baseline, or you already develop your materiality for your organization. In that case, every year that materiality has to be analyzed, and one year or once in 2 years, and based upon that you can align your materiality with respect to your sustainability goals. So these are the different issues under ISO 26000. There are 37 issues and 258 different issues. Under, like in governance, there are 12 issues, human rights 33, labor practices 44. There are total 258 issues. Same like the GR. So this is the core subject of sustainable procurement. First is due diligence, human rights, awareness of complexity, resolving governance, discrimination. Then under labor practices, there are different issues called employment, employment relations, condition of the work and social protection. Then social dialogue, health and safety of works, human development, and training in the workplace. Then third core subject is your environment, the prevention of pollution, sustainable resources use with respect to your raw material, what raw materials you are using, then climate change mitigation adaptation. So what are the mitigation actions you are taken, and within the span of 5 years, how you're adapting, any actions have been taken or not. The protection of the environment, biodiversity, and restoration of natural habitats. So these are the different issues under environment. You can select which is material to your organization. Then fair operating practices with respect to anti-corruption, governance, then responsibility, political environment, fair competitions, promoting social responsibility in the value chain being a supply chain. Then respect to property rights. Then it talks about the consumer issues, fair marketing, factual unbiased information, fair contractual practices, protecting consumer health and safety, sustainable consumptions, consumer services, support, complex dispute resolutions, education awareness, and the last is your community involvement. It talks about your CSR practices and what you are doing and what are the projects you have taken under CSR. So these are the core subject in ISO 26000. Sphere of influence. For any organizations, there are either suppliers or your customer or your clients. So your suppliers means you are suppose you are manufacturing a phone, mobile. In that case, your suppliers will be different raw material suppliers from India or China or USA. So what type of raw material they are using to manufacturing phone. So these are the things you need to take care, and you have control on what type of raw material you need to use to manufacturing for phone. So suppose your phone carbon footprint is 100 tons. In that case, you want to decrease your carbon footprint of your phone up to 90 tons because of this, because your one of your companies asking to reduce your carbon footprint by 10 tons of CO2 per year. In that case, here you have control what type of raw material you are using. In that case, this all your suppliers, they need to disclose their carbon footprint, or they need to just tell them to develop baseline or calculate the carbon footprint. Based upon the decision, you can sell the raw materials. Second stage, your suppliers, your customers, your clients, and their customer clients. So, so clients, few regulations developed by the client, like waste disposal, reuse, recycling, trash, or circular economy, or zero to landfill, or climate change. So these are the things These are the requirements came from the client, and same requirement will goes to your organization. And once you came to know about the requirement, suppose as per the client requirement, your organization also, your suppliers also disclose about these things. In that case, same will be applicable to your suppliers. Then we'll ask your suppliers to align all these targets in your organization, in their organization, and your suppliers then will be aligned to your organizational goals and your client goals. So this is sphere of influence. It will examine extent which you can have an impact. For example, how large your market share. This is the 2040 process. First is your fundamentals, then policy, strategy, organization, and process. First is the managing the risk, which are the different risks for your organization. Then once risk identified, then due diligence. Then based upon the risk, prioritization of risk, setting the priorities, then avoiding the complexities based on the priority developed by the organization. For those risks, how to avoid the complexity, and exercising the influence. Then policy strategy in your organization and procurement context. Once organization sustainable strategies develop and policies develop organization level, same policies can be aligned with respect to your procurement context. Then sustainable procurement policies and strategies can be developed. Then align these policies to your governance. Governance means there are different stakeholders, people. Then prioritize to each stakeholder what is the roles and responsibility, and then reporting and disclosures through GRI, CDP, IR, or any other type of reporting. Then grievance. From this disclosure, if any of your suppliers or vendors or your client, they have a problem or they have some issues, in that case, there should be a grievance mechanism. And how to resolve that grievance mechanism, the proper feedback mechanism should be placed. So then process, plan, source, and manage. This is your procurement practices. First is plan. If you want to procure some resources, so you need to develop plan. You need to set a criteria for your suppliers or contractors, and based upon that, sourcing decision can be taken. So here, sourcing will be based upon sustainable criteria, procurement criteria, and once sourcing decision has been taken, how you are managing those contractors, vendors, and issues of the contract, and all these things will come into place. So initially we discussed about the drivers for organization to go for sustainable procurement, development of sustainable procurement policy. So depending on organization, drivers can be different. For some organization, it will be risk management. For some, it will be competitive advantage or cost optimization. These are the different drivers for organizations. Then process, implementation of process your procurement practices. So first is principle, core subject, drivers, and consideration. Core subject can be with which we discuss about 26,000, all 37 core subjects. Then drivers, what we discussed in the last slide. Then principles and consideration. Then policy strategy, your leadership accountability of each stakeholders, internal stakeholder for the organization. Then aligning the organization goals. Once goals has been developed, organizational goals, sustainability goals, those goals need to align in your supply chain and your procurement practices, and implement those goals in your procurement practices. Then your strategies and policies should be risk and opportunities and culture value for your organization. So aligning with organizational goals. So your policies, what you have developed based upon your organizational goal or sustainability strategies, same policies can be aligned with your organizational goals or your procurement practices. So this is the procurement process: planning, integrating sustainability into specification, selecting suppliers, managing the contracts, and doing and learning. So this is general procurement process. The next is enabling. First is enabling people, train them, all your internal stakeholders and key decision making in your supply chain. Just train them. Then engaging the stakeholders. Stakeholders can be your internal and external stakeholders, your suppliers, based upon the type of spend. 90% you can select tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 suppliers based upon the spend analysis from your procurement practices. You can choose what type of suppliers need to go for this, their evaluation based on sustainable procurement criteria. Then measurement and improving the performance, and establish the grievance mechanism. If any of your suppliers have they want to submit the feedback, in that case grievance mechanism should be there. So suppliers can be evaluated or audited based with the help of this DQS supplier management tool. So here you can check your compliance, quality, safety, environment, social, or sustainability. So these are the different criteria under quality, safety, or environment. So here you can choose the certain criteria based upon the requirement of the suppliers. Also, you can use different standards called SEDEX, META, FSA, Red Cert, or any other standard to evaluate your suppliers. So DQS develop IoT-based software for supplier evaluation. So all your sustainability practices or your supplier evaluation can be done with the help of this tool. Then supplier sourcing. So first is your pre-qualification process. Pre-qualification means what are the requirement of your to become a supplier for your organization. Just take an example of Apple. So Apple pre-qualification, they will just develop a pre-qualification criteria, so that you need to disclose the carbon footprint, their targets, or any other goals. So all goals need to be fulfilled by your supplier. In that case only they will qualify us. So this is the pre-qualification process. Once pre-qualification done and vendors has been passed through pre-qualification process, second is the tendering process, and last is your specific sustainability requirements. So based upon once all vendors selected and tender floated, and they have selected five companies to go for this tender. And when we go for the evaluations, evaluation is based upon system procurement criteria, not on the L1 criteria. Here, when the vendor evaluation has been done in your procurement practices based upon your system procurement policy, at that time there are different criteria, like first key aspect for your organization will be climate change, second will be waste, third will be a social criteria, then fourth will be a governance. So these are the four priorities of the criteria for environment, social, and governance. Based upon these four criteria, vendor evaluation has been done, the ESG score can be calculated, and based upon that contract can be awarded. So this is the process for the vendor evaluation. So vendors can be also evaluated. So now the criteria can be a life cycle cost. So what is the total cost of ownership, all life cycle cost and impacts. So based upon this also the purchasing decision can be taken. So there are different standards in the market which can be used as part of the vendor evaluations. At the time of pre-qualification, you can choose some of the criteria like Energy Star, Water Science, that all products should be Energy Star as per the EPA Water, or Cradle to Cradle, or Eco or Global Recycle Standards, Green Guard, Hygiene, or DQS Green. These are some standards which can be help organization as part of the vendor evaluation criteria. So you can put the requirement at the time of pre-qualification, that basically required for any organization to submit a Cradle to Cradle certificate, or a Green Guard certificate, or green related certificate, or they should have a static certificate. They should have as a 14,000, 45,000. These are the basic requirement for the evaluation for the pre-qualification stage. So these are the different standards you can use as part of your system procurement policy or vendor evaluations. And also, if one of your criteria can be a green product certificate, that all your raw material should be green certified. In that case, you can use ISO 14024, 21, and 25 standards based on the life cycle analysis. And it can be environmental label called as environmental labeling program. Under these standards, you can use as part of the environmental criteria. So this is the sustainability issues approach for one of the product in electronics. So here we are going to check organizational governance, human rights, labor practice, environment, therapeutic practices based upon the policy developed by that organization. Suppose we'll take an example of Apple. Their product is electronic product. For them, or they are checking organizational governance under mining of raw material. So for Apple, they are procuring some raw material from different suppliers. Some of the suppliers they are using rare material from the mining. In that case, they need to check one of the criteria can be mining of the raw material production. What is the impact happen in the production? What type of production strategy they are using? Third stage is manufacturing, emission from the manufacturing. Then packaging, what type of packaging they are using? Then transportation, storage, retail, use, disposal, recycling. So under organization governance, these are things you can check. For human rights, uh, one of the indicator under core issues. Under mining and raw material, they are checking conflict with the forced labors. Material production, they are checking forced labor. This is the evaluation criteria for material production. For manufacturing, again forced labor or discrimination. For retail, it will be diversity, culture, and religion. So these are the few indicators under human right. For organization governance, it can be different indicators. For labor practices, some of the few indicators can be safety, then safety, health, work conditions, and any other criteria can be issues. So these issues will come from your materiality and from ISO 26000 core issues. Under environment, one of the criteria can be deforestation, CO2 emission, water in mining of raw material, then chemical emissions, water usage, the other different criteria under environment. In the last stage, disposal stage, end of life stage, one of the criteria can be recycling. Then fair operating practices. So as per the ISO 37000, anti-bribery can be there. Then consumer issues, then labeling, how you are labeling your product in packaging. This is the one of the indicator. Then protection of consumer privacy, safety, health, and take back. Then community involvement. For community involvement as part of CSR. So under mining, what happened to your people, how they are taken care, or contract labors, they're following all the conditions or not. These are the things you need to check. And one of the criteria under disposal and recycling can be illegal waste and dumping. So here you can choose what are the high impact and medium impact and low impact criteria. Based upon that, vendor evaluation can be done. So this is one of the checklist as part of the vendor evaluation or your supplier evaluations. There are 5 suppliers. In that case, based upon this criteria, you are going to check against each criteria based upon your purchasing policy, and it is important for an organization or not. That can be designed in the material designing. And based upon these 7 core issues, vendor evaluation has been done. And based upon that, vendor ranking will be given. So this is how your sustainable procurement policy will looks like. It should be ethically driven, socially focused, green inspired. At the same time, it is be quality centered. So these are the different drivers for your sustainability procurement policies: cost optimization, workers, investor confidence, risk management, legislation, competitive advantage, customers, and organizational ethics. And to govern the procurement, you need to place your sourcing strategies, pre-qualification, tenders, awards, and supplier KPIs. So your supplier, when you decide your supplier KPIs, so those KPIs should be aligned with your procurement practices. So one of the KPI can be ethics or a green product or employee health and safety, and quality means ISO 9000 certification. These are the one of the criteria as part of your pre-qualification or supply KPI disciplines. So thank you for your time. So this is the overview of the ISO 26000. If you have any queries, you can write to us on nilesh.d@dqsindia, or you can call us if you have any other requirement.